And you can see that the original title I came up with was Adding Value to Food and Life. But as you'll see in the program, I think Jay came up with a much more captivating title, the full meaning of which I think you will understand by the end of my talk. So what I'd like to begin with is a statement which really underlies the motivation for the research that I conduct. And this statement is that the longer obesity persists, the more it changes your biology. So really, what does that mean? And we have some excellent understanding of obesity and its causes and what caused the maintenance of obesity from appetite regulation. So we know in the body there is this very complex yet integrated system of signals that travel from our digestive system to the brain to indicate to us whether we feel full, do we feel hungry, and to really monitor and modify our food intake. In that system, we have factors which I like to think of as the red light signals. These are the signals that travel to our brain and they tell us we're full. We can stop eating right now. And just one of those signals, amongst many, is called PYY. On the other side of the appetite and eating behavior continuum are those signals which I like to think of as the green light signals. And these give the body the go-ahead to eat. So they're the hunger drive within us. And for centuries, these signals have worked in a very nice manner to, in essence, allow adults to maintain a very stable body weight. But within the past generation, we know that these signals are very susceptible to the environment in which we live, and in essence, are susceptible to what we call the post-dieting syndrome. So what is the post-dieting syndrome? Well, we have some very good understanding of what this means and why individuals actually struggle with overweight and weight maintenance is in some research studies that were conducted in individuals who had been overweight or obese for many, many years. And in the study, they were assisted in losing 10% of their body weight. So if an individual started at 240 pounds, they lost 24 pounds in the study. And then they were asked to maintain this new lower body weight for the year. And at the end of this year, they did a whole battery of tests on these individuals. And this is what they found. First of all, in terms of appetite regulation, what they saw a full year out from the weight loss was that ghrelin, this hunger signal, was 20% higher. PYY, that factor that tells you we're full, we're satisfied, was actually reduced 20% lower than it was at the beginning of the study before they lost the weight. And in essence, what the body was telling these individuals, or their brain, is we're starving. The body, of course, was not starving, but those were the cues that were going to the brain. And it was driving the individual to regain or defend back to that higher body weight that they started at. It doesn't end just with appetite regulation. They also have done studies where they can see that there are changes in the number of calories that the body burns post-weight loss. So again, after having individuals lose the weight, they took a muscle biopsy and they looked at how much energy is being burned in that muscle tissue in daily activity and exercises. So going out for a brisk walk, doing the yard work. And what they saw was that the muscle was burning 20 to 25% less energy than it had prior to their weight loss. Again, this biology was driving the individuals to gain back the weight that they had lost. And it doesn't stop there. The brain was also altered after the weight loss. And so this burger, of course, well, maybe not at 9:30 in the morning, doesn't look too rewarding or appetizing, but it should. And so the reward centers in the brain after the weight loss would see this cheeseburger as even more rewarding and drive the individual to consume more of these types of food and the reward center in the brain would be highly activated. And so it makes it very difficult for an individual to exercise restraint. And so I think what this collection of research study tells us, it's powerful knowledge for why we struggle with weight loss and, more importantly, maintaining that new lower body weight. So for me as a researcher, the question then becomes, if we know this biology is being changed by the persistence of overweight or obesity, so the longer we carry the weight, is there a way to counteract this new biology that's been created by the persistent obesity? And of course, my training and expertise is in the nutritional sciences, and so I come at this question from a nutrition standpoint. And one dietary change that we know is particularly powerful in this regard is a prebiotic fiber intervention. And so prebiotic fiber is a particular type of dietary fiber found naturally in garlic, leeks, onions, asparagus, some in wheat and bananas. And if you think about our typical North American diet, we don't eat very much of this type of fiber. It's only about 2 grams per day. But if you eat sufficient amounts of prebiotic fiber, we know there's a whole host of benefits to the person consuming them. So it increases GLP-1 and PYY, these signals that travel to the brain and tell us we're full. It decreases the hunger signal, ghrelin. It can reduce voluntary food intake by individuals and reduce the subjective feelings of hunger that we have. Another thing it can do is improve the way in which the body utilizes glucose, which is important for prevention of type 2 diabetes and other metabolic disorders. And perhaps the most surprising of those is this statement that it improves the profile of the bacteria that live in our intestine. So why might that be important of shifting the bacteria that live within our intestine? And this is an area of intense interest in the research in understanding the link between the bacteria in our intestine and the involvement in a variety of different diseases. And obesity was the first disease in which this shift in bacteria was actually characterized. And we know that if you look at an obese mouse versus a lean one, and we know the same thing is seen in a lean versus an obese adult or human, that there is a shift in the bacteria in the intestine. And this can actually be a factor that contributes to obesity, but also can modify or allow for the persistence of that obesity to take place in the body. And one particular type of bacteria in the intestine is bifidobacteria. And these are typically considered healthy. We see them in probiotic yogurts and whatnot. And these are very much reduced in the obese situation. And for me, the good news here is the more we learn about this gut microbiota or all these bacteria in the intestine is we can actually manipulate them with diet, and we can shift them back into what we would consider a healthy profile. So I would just briefly like to describe for you some of the clinical trial work we do in terms of dietary fiber with the management of body weight. And in this study, we used a prebiotic fiber supplement and asked the individuals who were overweight and obese to take it for 3 months. Now, what you can see here, these white bars are the control or the placebo group. They simply, in essence, got a sugar pill throughout the 3 months. And what you see here is over the 3 months, they actually gained a little bit of weight, so approximately ½ a kilogram or 1 pound. And what we know is that the typical adult will gain approximately 1 kilogram or just over 2 pounds every year in adult life. So this is what we saw in the placebo group was actually very typical of what happens to us in adulthood. And a little bit of that, about half of that was fat mass. Then we turn to the black bars, which are the subjects in the study who received the prebiotic fiber. And what we can see is not only did that prebiotic fiber stop this typical weight gain that we all seem to experience in adulthood, but it actually caused them to lose approximately 1 kilogram, and the vast majority of that came from fat mass. And along with that, we see that it then decreased ghrelin, the hunger signal, and increased PYY. But certainly prebiotic fiber is not the only type of fiber we need. It's not the only one that can have benefit. And so with funding from Alberta Innovates Biosolutions, we looked at another unique type of fiber source, and that's from the dried yellow pea. And again, in this study, we had overweight and obese individuals consume an additional 15 grams of the pea fiber over the course of 3 months. And at the end of the study, we wanted to assess their appetite and food intake. So we gave them a pizza buffet. So all the cheese pizza you could want, and simply instructed them to, when you feel satisfied, stop eating, and then we do detailed calculations to see how many calories or how much energy they actually consumed. And we do that at the beginning of the study, at baseline, and at the end of the study. And those individuals who had been put into the control group actually ate more pizza at the end of the study than they did at the beginning of the study. So we seemed to, unfortunately, drive up appetite a little bit in the control group over time. And those that consumed the yellow pea fiber actually decreased the amount of pizza they ate at the end of the study by 131 calories. And together with that, we saw the typical increase in body weight in the control group and decrease in body weight and decrease in body fat in those who consumed the pea fiber. Now, the way in which we actually incorporated the yellow pea fiber for the study was into a cookie biscuit. And this was developed with colleagues at the Food Processing Development Center in Leduc. And we, in essence, created this ginger snap type cookie. But that's not the only place that this yellow pea fiber could be added, and there's many, many other applications in terms of food. You could put it into soup, into muffins, many different applications. And so we know that Alberta crops really represent for us a rich source of potential healthy food ingredients that can be added into foods, which will bring value to the health of Canadians and increase the economy as well. So in conclusion, I would just like to reiterate that we now have some very meaningful insight into what the persistence or the long-term consequences are of carrying excess body weight. And obesity really, truly does create within the body a new biology. And so we're looking for ways to combat that. And of course, dietary fiber is literally one out of many different targets that can be used in this sense, and it has numerous benefits that we've highlighted. And finally, there's real value in adding these high-quality ingredients that have health impact into the food supply. And so with that, I would just like to put up an acknowledgement of the many, many different trainees who have helped generate this kind of research, and for the funding bodies. Thank you.